Oh, I forgot to start the recording. Okay, now I've started the recording, but darn it. You know, the recording, when last semester when we used Zoom, you could click when you set up the class to automatically start the recording. And when I check now this semester on Zoom, it doesn't automatically start the recording. So I just want to say here that we've been going since 10 o'clock. So we're 40 minutes into the class. So if anybody is looking at this recording after it's posted, please be aware we're only starting the recording at 10:39, but we've been going on since 10 o'clock. Okay. But you know, you have to I have to always remember to start the recording session because it doesn't automatically start recording. At least I didn't see that in the selection button in setting up the Zoom classes, but now we're recording. So back into the breakout rooms here, and let me let me form 3 groups. So I'll assign you automatically and create, and so open the rooms, and so Gloria, Micah, and Kim Pyong-koo and Joe Chin, please join room 1. Anais, Ariel, Juliet, and Kim Min-ji, please join room 2. And Chung Dun-jin, Kirill Amorsky, and Yi Ju-young, please join room 3. And there's no right or wrong answer. So Chung Du-jin and Yi Ju-young, please join room 3. And there's no right or wrong answer here, but I would like you to tell me where your group fits on this scale. Do you strongly agree, neutral, can't decide, disagree, or strongly disagree with the statement that people who are poor are generally personally responsible for being poor? So again, there's no right or wrong answer, but please decide your group what your position is on that statement if you can, but you cannot decide is one of the options there. And so let me, I also have to decide what position I'm going to take. And so I will always ask Admiral Lee to assign a position to me. So heads is 1, 2, or 3, and it is tails. So heads is disagree, and it is tails. So I strongly disagree. So Admiral Lee told me to strongly disagree, so I strongly disagree. So I'm going to write a strongly disagree statement. So come up to a position, agreement onto a position as to your group, and then an explanation as to why it will be. And let me also remind myself or remind you that who's going to speak for the group. So heads, it's the first person in the group, and it is heads. So Gloria will speak for room 1, Anais will speak for room 2, and Chung Du-jin will speak for room 3. So help Gloria, help Anais, and help Chung Du-jin to prepare to speak for the group as to what your group decided on this question. So back to share screen, and I have to write a strongly disagree position. So strongly disagree, and this notion, but of course I'm going to try to fit, since I already know my position in reality, I'm going to try to fit my position into this statement so that it presents more information for the course. So this belief, I strongly disagree. This belief that the poor are responsible or overwhelmingly responsible for their poverty is a manifestation of American brainwashing, or to use the social scientific term, is a manifestation of American Gramscian hegemony. Of American Gramscian hegemony. The ruling class, the de facto ruling class, because it's not official, we don't have an official Yangbang. The de facto ruling class in America uses its control over media and education together with marketing and advertising and patriotic appeals, as well with patriotic appeals to traditional American values, the American creed, to make the poor the scapegoats for the societal catastrophes and violence and inequality in American society. Unfortunately, racism is critically important. Unfortunately, racism is de facto critically important for American Gramscian hegemony because extreme poverty is associated with enslavement of African Americans, is associated with the low status position of African Americans, as the low status position of enslaved African Americans. Okay. You know, again, one of the reasons why I like doing these exercises is because I learn from them as well. I mean, I've always sort of known what I've just said, but to actually write it down and tell it to you, I got some new insights into these notions. Okay, so let me now go to the back to the groups and close the breakout room. So you have 1 minute to finish up. And then we will flip a coin. We will then flip a coin to decide who will speak first of the three groups. Kirill Yamorsky, are you Belarusian or Ukrainian or Russian or some other Slavic background?
It's a tough question. I'm half Russian, half French, but my family lives in Ukraine.
Oh, wow. What part of Ukraine?
Well, typically Kiev, but right now they had to leave, of course.
Where'd they go?
Uzhgorod, which is next to the Hungarian border.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Poland, and 5-6 years ago I was in Lviv for a conference at the Ukrainian Catholic University.
Yeah, lovely city.
Yeah, and the president of the university is an American Ukrainian bishop, Boris Gradish. He's Ukrainian American, and he's the president of the university, and it's a really nice university. And he pointed out to us at the presentation when we were there that one of their faculty was killed at Maidan in 2016. It was a young guy, got shot through the heart at the protests in Kiev in 2016. I think he's quite a Ukrainian patriot, this Ukrainian Catholic bishop who, Boris Gradish, I think is his name, who's president of the university, but he goes back and forth between Philadelphia and Lviv.
Yeah, I mean, most of Western Ukraine is very pro-European and pro-Ukrainian and Catholic as well. This is the whole difference between the West and the rest of the country, is that mostly the country is, of course, Orthodox, but the West is Catholic. So that's the main religious difference between the two.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Poland when I wrote my dissertation on Polish politics, and I visited Przemysl, close to the border.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's where most volunteers are at the moment to help the refugees. Actually, I have a few friends there.
Yeah, but I remember when I was Lviv, I would go jogging in the morning, and I'd go through the streets, and each street a corner, you would see these big shrines, either to the Virgin Mary or to Jesus Christ. These big Catholic shrines on the street corner to either the Virgin Mary or Jesus. And of course, there's an unfortunate conflict history between Poles and Ukrainians in that region as well.
Yes,
and
especially Western Ukraine, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, there was incredible genocidal violence occurred on all from, and of course, the sensitive topic of for some people, for Stepan Bandera, and Stepan Bandera was the son of a Greek Catholic priest, a Ukrainian Catholic priest. So it's interesting. I wrote a paper on it, so I got it published a few years ago that I thought was pretty good. But anyway, okay. So let's go now to our breakout rooms. And so who's going to speak first? Heads, it's room 1, and it's heads. So okay. So that is Gloria. So Gloria, what is your group's position on this question as to whether or not poor people are generally responsible for their own poverty?
Yeah, so we decided to vote disagree by compromising. Therefore, one person had a stronger opinion about it, but we decided to put nuance in it. So we thought that some of the structure of the biased system in America or in other country, because I'm come from Europe, so I can say that in Europe it is also not everything is good in the system. So that puts some people in a bad start at life with less resources than others, and some other, when they don't get what it is to struggle, some people can have like the meritocratic, I don't know if we can say it in English. So it's meritocratic character of thinking that we can achieve anything with the will, the strong will. But it is we kind of disagree on that point, because as we said, like we're not born with the same access to few resources, to money, to good place to live, to good universities or school, or even primary school. So yeah, that's kind of depend on where you're born and in which family and in which. So that's not something that is up to you. Some in our group were thinking that we can have different outcomes, like we can do something to put different outcome in our life. But yeah, that was kind of nuanced between each person in the group, but it was a great debate.
Okay, so in case I forget, make sure everybody votes personally on this question according to the vote. Okay, but okay, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a more of a view that you would find in Europe and in Asia, that your background does determine, overwhelmingly your class background determines your more so your destiny than Americans would like to. It's true in the United States as well, but Americans don't like to admit it. We're much more hostile to that notion, even though it's true. But that's part of this romantic stereotype, because stereotypes are not real. Stereotypes are stereotypes. They're romantic, a positive term for stereotype is an archetype. This romantic self-image of what it means to be the American, that you're the self-made man, right? That you came with nothing and you came to America where, you know, you can be successful in America if you work hard and you try hard and you do, how can you can't fail in America. It's the place where you can, the streets are paved with gold. That's why people come to America. Historically, right? Yeah. And that is the prevailing image that exists in America, that is partly the romantic self-image of what it means to be an American that politicians and elite use to communicate with each other and with other Americans, to coordinate and mobilize them. Like I tell my class, you know, in terms of you can't understand public opinion and understand the role of nationalism, which means you cannot understand politics unless you understand the role of emotion. Emotion. Joy, hate, disgust, right? These are all critically important and related to what it means to be who I am and who I think you are, whether I like you or don't like you. And so Americans, they become very emotional about these issues, particularly when Black Lives Matter Black Lives Matter activists criticize America as being as a manifestation of structural racism, that America was founded upon racism, that there are institutions, informal and formal, in place that seek to keep Black people segregated, and that Black people, even though they're only 12% of the population in America, they're at least 25% of the prison population, they're at least 25% of the poverty of the poor people, that it's because of the legacy of slavery. American, your typical white American doesn't want to hear this. No, I'm not going to listen to you. No, because it makes them unhappy. I want to feel good about me, which means I want to feel good about my country because I am my country. I identify myself with my in-group, and my most important in-group is my family and my nation if I'm a typical human being. And I want to feel good about my family, and that means I want to feel good about my nation, because then I feel good about me. If you tell me that somehow America lies, it lies to itself and it lies to everybody else, I'm going to likely get very upset with you, because I don't want to hear that. And if you're a politician like Donald Trump, you'll exploit that. And he did it, and he won. And this romantic notion promoted all the way back, going back to the founding of Protestant Christian America, that you can tell if God likes you, if God has favored you by success in this life. And if you are not successful in America, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you, that there's somehow God doesn't like you, or you are not, or they will expand to the family. It says you come from a bad family. You weren't raised properly. You're ignorant. That's why you're poor. And so of course, these are relative and contextual statements, but there's, I think, a stronger predisposition in America to believe that if you're poor, it's your fault. If you're poor and you can't get out of being poor, and you continue to make yourself poorer and poorer and poorer, so you have too many babies outside of marriage, so you can't keep a job because you have to take care of your kids, and you're poor, you're a bad person. And you shouldn't be having babies outside of marriage, because that's not what this says you should do, according to the Moksa, the minister, the preacher who interprets it, right? These people become very emotional. They say, you look at all the problems of America in terms of the violence and the crimes and the murders and the drug use, and they claim, the people that support Donald Trump claim, we didn't have these problems 60, 70, 80 years ago. We need to make America great again. And how do you make America great again? You go back to this. This is what made America great. It wasn't the vast lands and resources and with oil and gas and gold. And no, I mean, lots of countries have vast resources. Look at Russia. Look how much vast natural resources they have. Look at Africa. Look at the vast natural resources they have. What made them, and what made America different? This made America different. This. That's why America became a superpower. And these secular humanists with their PhDs in anthropology and in political science and in sociology are going to try to change America because they don't like what they think America, what they see, and they want to recreate America in their own image. And anybody who follows this, they think this is silly, right? They think this is mythology, this is superstition. And you can imagine how people become very emotional about this, very hateful as well towards the other. And this goes back because we have to talk about we should talk about the notes and the material in the chapter, but I want to give you the context for understanding how the American Constitution was written. American Constitution was written by people who believe that if people are rich, they came to America and they worked because they deserved to be rich. They deserved it. They earned it. They didn't inherit it from their father who was a Yangban. They earned it. And what's theirs is theirs. And that, like Thomas Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence, we believe these truths to be self-evident, that all people have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's taken from John Locke, who said human beings, he was one of the founders of classical liberalism, that human beings have the natural God-given rights of life, liberty, and the ownership of property. The ownership of property. Because he was fighting the Yangban, John Locke was fighting the Yangban who claimed that they could take people's property because they were the Yangban. And John Locke, representing the rising middle class, the rising bourgeoisie, said, no, it's human nature, human rights from God to have life, liberty, and the ownership of property. And then Thomas Jefferson, in preparing to fight the American war with the British, said it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because that sounds better. But what is it's equating happiness with property. And the Constitution, like written by people like Thomas Jefferson, who later helped write the Constitution, and James Madison and others, was written by people who believed that rich people deserved to be rich because they earned it, and that they were not going to allow poor people to try to use control of the government to take control of their property, to take their property away. So we have to keep the poor politically weak, because they are envious and they will try to use the power of a big, powerful central government to take the money away from the rich and give it to the poor, including the ownership of slaves. The slaves are considered property. Now, there are a lot of people who had problems with slavery, but by the time of the American independence, at the end of the 18th century, slavery had been around for 150 years, almost 2 centuries. And so there was a lot of vested interest, a lot of money had been invested in the economics involving enforced labor, enslavement. And to forsake that and give that all up, all that investment, all that inherited wealth from your father to you, who made some money and gave it to his children when he died, his will, and so on. No. And the Americans would not be able to abolish slavery without fighting a war, a civil war. But the Constitution was written by people that were the embodiment of the American creed. So let's now go back to the let's go back to the other two groups. And so heads is Anais, and it is tails. So Chung Junjin Dujin, please speak for group room 3. Chung Dujin.
Oh, yes. We the major opinion of our group was disagree, and my own opinion was strongly disagree about the topics. And the reason is the poverty, it's originated by the social structure, and we think that it also might have responsibility for the poor people. it might be a small responsibility and appropriate for themselves, but but on the other side, the rich people has a more responsible about the whole poverty itself. So it is our groups. It is what our groups talked about.
And that could be true. And of course, there have been lots of people who have argued that, how is it that, Karl Marx, the father of Marxism, right? He predicted there would eventually be a revolution in Europe. He was particularly focused on Europe. He talked a bit about America, but he thought America was exceptional. He even said America is exceptional because there's so much natural wealth and prosperity out there that the class conflict will not become so intense because you're not going to have the impoverishment, at least of the people in America that you find, for example, in the working class in the Warrens and urban slums of industrializing Britain and Germany. Right? So even Marx thought America was different, but Marx predicted there would be a revolution because the working class would become so miserable and so angry that they would eventually rise up and overthrow capitalism and take control of the means of production through the state and the government controlling the factories, taking control of the factories and the resources, and establish a world socialist revolution. And it didn't happen. And by the early 20th century, there were some important thinkers that emerged to try to explain why that didn't happen. And one, perhaps the most important and most popular these days, is this guy, Antonio Gramsci. So you remember I mentioned a Gramscian hegemony? Gramsci was trying to understand, while he was in prison, when Benito Mussolini threw him in prison because he was a Marxist, he wrote the prison notebooks. And he tried to explain why it is that the socialist revolution that Marx predicted never happened. And he didn't use the term brainwashing. That's the term that emerged in America during the Korean War, this term brainwashing, because these American prisoners of war of the North Koreans would then come out and read statements that appeared to show their commitment to North Korea. And people said, oh, they were brainwashed. But people know what you mean when you say brainwashing, right? But Antonio Gramsci talked about how the ruling class creates an entire system, cultural, educational, as well as political, that convinces the mass of the population that the particular interests of the powerful elite represent the national or public interest, that the interest of the particular ruling group is the interest of everybody to support their interests, to support their domination, to support their control. And he tries to explain how that process happens, and he tries to lay out a program or the outlines of a strategy how the working class has to create alternative hegemonies to compete with the ruling class, the bourgeois capitalist hegemony. And so, and this was seen as, the precursor to basically European social democracy, social democratic thinking. And so this notion of Gramscian hegemony is this notion of how do the ruling elites within a society persuade or convince everyone in the society that the status quo in terms of hierarchy, socioeconomic status and hierarchy and richness and poverty inequality is justifiable, is natural, is due to the weak people's own responsibility, that poor people are poor because they basically deserve to be poor, that they did something wrong, that they're bad. Okay, and so if you do any further reading in Marxism, you're going to encounter this because everybody's talking about Gramscian hegemony these days, and so yeah, you see cultural hegemony, bourgeoisie, the prison notebooks, and so on. But okay, and so that's the a point of a lot of Marxist thinkers in America. How is it that some of these Marxist thinkers, including Howard Zinn in the book that I use for the American history class that I teach in the fall, he, like many American Marxists, claimed that racism was an ideological creation of the ruling capitalist elite going all the way back to the 17th century in America to keep the working class divided by racist polarization between white and black workers in America. That racism is used by a way by which to keep the massive working class in America politically divided and therefore politically weak. That's one of their main, even to the present, to 2022, to today, that the ruling elite uses racism and fears of stereotypes of black people to keep white people from supporting socialism. And Donald Trump, exploits that. I mean, who are the strongest supporters of Donald Trump? White, particularly white men without a four-year college degree. People that become more educated, they tend to become more Democratic Party oriented in the United States these days. So you find the strongest racism amongst the white workers. That's a general statement. That's just a very general, broad statement. And yeah, I mean, and Cyril mentions that academia, it says it requires 3 to 5 generations. There's been a lot of work highlighted in the American media about how social mobility, that's the term, that social mobility is now become easier in Europe than it is in the United States. That, we imagine America was the place to which Europeans and others went to acquire economic wealth, to acquire social mobility through higher socioeconomic status, through greater wealth. But now, in fact, supposedly there's been work highlighted by people like Paul Krugman at Princeton, the economist at Princeton University, who's got the Nobel Prize, who writes for the New York Times, that social mobility is more likely, is easier, is more typical and more common in Europe today than it is in the United States. But and that might be one of the reasons that we have this rise of American populist nationalism. People are trying to explain why they're not doing as well as their parents. Why, if I'm a person who just graduated from high school like my mom and dad did, my dad got a good job, making a lot of money in the factory. I, however, can't get a job at the factory because the factory closed, and so I got to get a job at McDonald's or Domino's Pizza or Dunkin' Donut, and I make much less money comparatively speaking than my father did. Why? What's going on? And those people often, not always, will take who look to their natural, innate socialization from the time they were children to say, well, the problem is we have too much socialism. We have too much benefits going to lazy black people and brown people who use the US government to restrict the economy, to take money from the rich and give it to these lazy people. And that's why the economy is not doing well. And I can't find a better job except working at McDonald's. So there. And there will be people that tell them that. There will be people like Donald Trump and the supporters of Donald Trump who tell them that. They will tell them, have you ever met a poor person that gives you a job? A poor person will never give you a job. Only a rich person will give you a job. So we want lots of rich people because we have lots of rich people that make lots of jobs. They say that over and over and over again. A poor person is never going to give you a job. So don't resent the rich. Don't blame the rich. And remember, to go back to the material for this week, the American Constitution was written by people who believed in these notions of the American creed. So, and then we have another group. So we go back to the breakout rooms. And Anais, room 2, what did your group decide?
So we were between disagree and strongly disagree. Because we know that it's difficult to get out or like to find a good job and get more money if you're born in a poor community. And also we know how expensive it is to go into university. So if you're poor, you cannot go into university unless you get a scholarship. And if you cannot get into university, you have lower chances to get a job with a good salary.
Yeah, and I mean, Americans, are not completely hostile to these notions, for example, of increasing government funding for higher education so people don't have to pay as much tuition to go to school. But it's just so much more politically difficult in the United States. That's the point that Seymour Martin Lipset emphasizes in his book when he's trying to analyze what we call, I really don't like these terms because they're too general, but we call political culture. Seymour Martin Lipset, the author of that book, American Exceptionalism, A Double-Edged Sword, that highlights the American creed. He was both a political scientist and a sociologist and a political scientist. And he was the only person ever to be president at one time of the American Political Science Association and then become a president of the American Sociological Association. And he pointed out in his book that culture doesn't determine everything. America does have a welfare state. America does have unemployment insurance. America does have the beginnings of a national healthcare medical care system. America does have an old age pension system, but it's the least developed of any of the developed countries in the world. When you compare to Japan, South Korea, even South Korea, Europe, America is the least developed social welfare state. And that's because of this resistance. And I think it's not emphasized enough in the Seymour Martin Lipset book, but it's partly because Americans tend to associate historically being poor with being with Black people, the enslaved. Who were the most poverty-stricken? The people that were enslaved. They didn't get paid for their work. They were not allowed to leave. They most of them died by the time they were, I think, only 1 in 100 Black people lived to the age of 60 during the time of slavery at the middle 19th century. And so Americans don't like the poor because they tend to associate the poor with the outcast enslaved population. Even though these people were being brought to make money, they were despised. And the despisement served a function of allowing people to feel okay about enslaving them, but these people are not really equal to white people anyway. And we're doing them a favor by bringing them from Africa to the United States. They're benefiting by coming from backward Africa to come to America and at least learn about Christianity. And so there is this fear of being poor, not only because being poor puts you in a precarious position, that's very important, right? But this notion that if you're terribly poor, you are somehow in the same category as so-called people of color, Black and brown people. And this is something that Americans don't want to typically they do not consciously want to admit that to themselves, because we know over the last 70 years, you're not, since at least the beginning of the 20th century, you're not supposed to say that you're a racist. 100 years ago, you might say, oh yeah, white people are better than Black people. Sure, no, there's no doubt about that. But you can't say that today, at least not in mainstream society. You might say it on Facebook to particular groups of people that are in your group, or in private and secret to your groups. But in the terms of mainstream media, you're not supposed to say that. And you're not supposed to say that. So most people, they won't admit that there is racism in so much of the systems of American social functioning. Because it goes against the American creed, right? Your background in terms of your race or religion or your that's not supposed to be important. Your only thing that's supposed to count is what you do. And you are evaluated in terms of your social status by what you achieve. Not by whether the color of your skin, not whether or not you're a Catholic or a Christian or a Jew, or not to mention a Muslim. That's not supposed to matter. And that's what is excellent about America. So, all right, so let's go to the, let me see, what else do I want to cover here? Oh, all right, the lesson plan. Okay, so I asked you for, I think we have a class on our next class is on Wednesday, right? So I would like you to write a 150-word paragraph taking a position pro or con on this topic, right? That the South Korean Constitution is better than the American Constitution because South Korea learned from the modern world's experience in creating its own constitution. So the American Constitution, that's emphasized in the book, right? That the American Constitution, it's been amended, it's been changed, but very rarely. I mean, the American Constitution has only been amended, I think, 16 times in its over 200 years of existence, in its 240 years of existence. There were 10 amendments that were adopted at the same time as the Constitution. Those are called the Bill of Rights, right? Those are the 10 Bill of Rights constitutions that supposedly protect the human rights of Americans, or at least the political and civil rights of Americans. But since that time, I think it's only been 16 other amendments that have been adopted in almost 240 years. So the American Constitution is still remarkably similar to the Constitution that was written 240 years ago. Now, South Korean Constitution, of course, is much more recent. Is the South Korean Constitution better because it has learned from the experience and the mistakes and the experience of the Americans, of the Japanese, the mistakes and experience of the Europeans? Because when you look at the South Korean Constitution, for example, it looks more like the French Constitution, except that there isn't two houses of parliament. There's only the National Assembly in South Korea. They have a strong president, but they also have a prime minister, like the French do, have a strong president and they have a prime minister. But they don't have a Senate, like the French have a Senate. The French have a strong president and a prime minister, but the French also have two chambers in their parliament. The South Koreans only have one. Is the South Korean Constitution better because it learned over all those experiences of other countries, close and far, influential and not so influential, particularly the American experience, because America has been so influential? I mean, if America is so influential, why didn't the South Koreans adopt the American style constitution? Why do they have a prime minister? It must mean that the American Constitution is not so good, right? Or wrong? And please submit that by Tuesday by 7 in the morning so that I can write comments and send them back to you before the class on Wednesday. And then we'll have an in-class debate on the topic so that I will mark down who is pro and who is con. So take pro or con, make sure you're pro or con on the debate topic. Oh, hold on, I gotta make sure you can see this, right? Make sure you write pro or con on the debate topic. You take pro or con position on the debate topic, and then I will write down who is pro and who is con according to your paragraphs, and then we'll have a class debate over Zoom, and then we'll vote over Zoom as to which side won, pro or con. Anonymous. It'll be an anonymous vote. I'll make it anonymous, so even if you write pro and then you change your mind to con, you can still vote con, and it'll be anonymous. And then submit that, make sure that the use and cite specific information from the readings to support and develop your ideas, because you have to give evidence. You can't just give me your opinion. I don't want your opinion. I want a truth statement. I want you to tell me what the truth is and prove it to me that that's the truth. And so how do you prove it? You use logical argumentation and you use evidence that you cite from scholarly sources, including the book. That's the class reading, to support your claims, or as evidence to show how you have factual social science knowledge to support your argument. Okay. And make sure that no more than 10% of anything you submit to me as homework is quoted text. So like, for example, quoted text means text you copy out of a website or out of the book, or out of, and you put in quotation marks, of course, any text you copy, no more than, and give the source, the page number, no more than 10% of anything you give me should be quoted text. So if your paragraph is 150 words, no more than 15 words should be quoted text. If it's 200 words, no more than 20 words should be quoted text, because if you have to rephrase information in your own words, you're more likely to learn because you have to think about it to put it in your own words, right? So if you think about it, you learn it. And then we want to give you opportunities to practice your English and talk and argue and debate on Zoom. And starting on Wednesday, we'll start meeting in classes, right? So I guess half of you, I'll send you an update, but half of you will meet in class with me on Wednesday, and the other half are not supposed to. It's gonna be fun, are not going to be in class, but we'll all be on Zoom, together on Zoom, except will be in the classroom what is the classroom? The class is, I want to go to, it's 342, right? Room 342 in this building. And we'll be on the computer there on Zoom, and half of you will be in the class. I think, what is it, the even numbered people? I'll have to send you an email. And the other half will just be online, and then we'll have a debate. And so some of you will participate on Zoom, and some of you will participate live in the classroom. Hey, it's like, that's okay. It's like working in a television studio, right? It's like working in a television studio. It's good media practice for those of you who want to go into the media business, entertainment and journalism. It'd be like in a television studio, right? And so that's a good way to look at it, in terms of getting more experience in dealing with this global media, because because of the pandemic, we had to go to Zoom. Everyone went to Zoom, right? And but now we're getting past. Well, we're supposedly making progress through the pandemic, but there's so many Zoom events going on that I attend that are at the University of Illinois in the United States, or at Harvard, and they're all on Zoom, and so Zoom is not going away. And so that's one way, again, to look at it, that this way we're using Zoom together with the classroom, live experience is like working in a television, in a media studio, in a streaming, in a broadcasting, that's a better term, a broadcasting studio. So look at it like that, as we're working in a broadcasting studio. And it's recorded, like this is being recorded. So everybody will be able to see it. So you're performing. We're always performing. So it's good practice. It's good practice for professional life. So So let's and then as I said earlier, okay. So I guess that covers that assignment there. And so we should go to the, and I asked you to do that, in-class quiz. That's the first time I've tried to use the exam function. So I had these questions from a data bank test, and I thought, wow, this is an interesting way to use this. I mean, I'm not grading you on the exam. I just want I want to see how we can use this exam function to help teach. Because you can see, I like to talk about nationalism and Gramscian hegemony and romantics, archetypes, self-images, but we also have to cover the basics, the basic information in this class. And so one way to help cover the basic information is through these online exams, right? And of course, I had a lot of plans of what to go through here. I think, what I want to do now? Okay, so I hope you found this kind of enjoyable, interesting, and I see that you did it. Okay, so I have some more. If that's useful, we can keep using that. What else can we do? That Zoom, the term they use in the Zoom time, in the pandemic time, is that all of this online social teleconferencing software, it gives you a lot of quote unquote affordances. So for example, we can record these lectures, these presentations, and people can go look at them again. Or if they missed class because they were sick, they can go watch them. And also one of the affordances of this software is that there's a lot less waste. I mean, when I used to teach this class a couple years ago, the last time before the pandemic, I had to use so many photocopies of paper from the class office. So much paper, so many trees had to be killed to make photocopies of in-class exercises. So now, because we have electronic software, and we have Zoom, and we can try to do these things with electronic files. And so we don't have to kill as many trees, and we can become more helpful to protect our environment. And so now let's try to do some introduction to this material in terms of the philosophy of the founders of the United States. And so let me go stop the share, and let me open up a file here, and let me open this up, and again, go to share screen, and we go, why government? And so here you see a page, 2 pages from an exercise about the founding ideology of the people that wrote the American Constitution. And I think you can see that, right? It says here, Thomas Hobbes. Now there, I mentioned John Locke, right? John Locke is born in 1632. He was the one who argued that people have, was a great philosopher, probably the most influential, one of the most influential philosophers coming out of the Anglo-Saxon English-speaking world. And he was the one that argued that people have, among other things, people have the right to life, liberty, and the ownership of property. And he heavily influenced Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence. But before John Locke was Thomas Hobbes. And Thomas Hobbes was also a liberal philosopher, but Thomas Hobbes was more focused upon, you need a government to enforce order. He was writing earlier than Locke. You can see he was born in 1588. Locke was born in almost 50 years later. And he's writing during both of them are writing during the beginnings of the English Civil War. And he's arguing for a powerful government that the people, particularly the people that have power. And so he's writing, and they're both writing for the literate aristocracy, well, not the aristocracy, but the people that are educated and powerful. I mean, at this time, maybe what, 1% of the population in Britain could read, right? I mean, very small minority of the population was literate. And so, and these people that could read and write tend to be people that were influential. They were often wealthy. They were priests. They were ministers. They were aristocrats. And his argument was that you do need a government because we need to have order. And so the people should agree to make a contract. And this notion of contract theory is really important for understanding American and British thinking. That contracts, you think about business contracts, right? Business. America and the rising middle class is about business, including the rising middle class in Britain that would become the founders of the Protestant Revolution in Britain, right? The Puritans represented, generally speaking, the rising middle class, challenging the young aristocracy that were the traditional rulers and dominating the English political system, although that's a very simplistic statement, right? But that's generally how we can understand the rising middle class being attracted to new forms of religion to justify their demands for changes in the economics and particularly the politics of their world that had been dominated by the traditional landed feudal aristocracy, the Yangban. And this was producing conflict and war. And Thomas Hobbes, people understand contracts, right? Contracts are what business is all about, at least in the Anglo-Saxon world. This is another topic for the methodology class, because we talked about how the Anglo-Saxon thinking is generally assumed to be the truth, but we are focusing on the Anglo-Saxon world. So contract theory is a term you'll encounter if you go any further in the study of political philosophy in liberalism, in American and British thinking. And Thomas Hobbes argued that the people fighting in these wars in Britain have to agree to give up their right to use weapons in order to create a government that will provide security so that you do not have to worry about being killed. And because you don't have to worry about being killed because there's a government that's got all of the power and is able to enforce order, and you agree to give up your right to use weapons, your swords, your guns, and give it to the government, then we can begin to have some degree of trust, and we can make some kind of long-term plans, and we can plan for the future, and we can make the world a better place. We can have long-term business development. We can have culture. We don't have to live in a state of nature that is a vicious jungle. Right? And so he argued that we should create what's called the Leviathan. The Leviathan is the name of his founding book. And you can see Leviathan, I think, is a term in the Bible for a giant. And there you see his book when it was published. And there you see the head of King Charles II. He's advocating for the Civil War to end, put the son of the dead king, his head was chopped off, Charles I, put Charles II head in power, give him the power of using the weapons, of using force, and he will use his power as leader of the church to persuade people to obey. This is a bishop's staff. And look closely at this Leviathan towering over the countryside. Who's making up the Leviathan? You can make this even bigger. You can't see it so much here, but these are all each individual human beings. Maybe I can go back here and go to Wikipedia if I can, and which is out of the way, go to Wikipedia and the Leviathan. Let me go get this out of the way here, and we go here, and we go to, not that, go to Leviathan, and there you see, here you see, who's making up the Leviathan? It's all of the young, basically Yangban. See if we make this bigger. All of these people agree to give up their right to use weapons to protect their honor as well as self-defense, and give it to the Leviathan. And we create the Leviathan through an agreement, through a contract. And in that way, we can begin to have, a more cultured, more happy world where we can have life, liberty, and we can pursue property. And instead of the world being a place where life is nasty, brutish, and short, right? He's quoted he's a great writer, right? That in the state of nature, life is nasty, brutish, and short. There is no culture, there is no business, there is nothing, only war. And then this John Locke, he had a more positive view of human nature. This guy views human beings as basically not very nice people. Human beings need to be controlled. John Locke said, it's not so negative, John said, Thomas, human nature is not so bad. People have a predisposition to cooperate if you let them, because people want to do business. And the role of the government is to protect life, liberty, and the ownership of property. And we obey the government. We obey through the king through a contract that we will obey the king or the government in return for the government protecting our life, liberty, and property. If the government violates, if the authority violates our life, our right to life, our right to liberty, and our right to property, then that breaks the contract. The contract is void because they are not delivering on what they're supposed to provide if I'm going to obey and subjugate myself to them. And so they have the right to revolution. And that's what really appealed to Thomas Jefferson when he was writing the Declaration of Independence. So this notion of the social contract and natural rights, and it was developed by these two liberal theorists. And so let me send that to you and go to chat and go to, let me see how this works here. And we go to government. And so there you see I distribute that page to you. So you should all have that. And then the second handout is the second set of pages. And make sure that I can share the screen there. Go back here. See, share screen. No, that's not what I want. Go here, share screen. And there you see that. And so rotate this. Okay, and so make that bigger. And so here's the exercise. So Thomas Hobbes, the state of nature, John Locke versus Thomas Hobbes. How would you describe their views of the state of nature? The social contract, who is involved in what is being exchanged? And the government, who is the government? Does it ever change? So I would like you to complete this table and also place here why government in a Venn diagram. Where would you put these 10 elements in the state of nature, the social contract, and their overlap? Okay, and let's see if we can do that here. Let me send you this the second page, and this is the first time we're doing this, so it is kind of a test run. So I send you the second page. Everybody gets the second page. And now what we want to do is divide up in the 10 minutes remaining, divide up into, again, into 3 groups, breakout rooms, 3 groups, open all the rooms again, or recreate and assign automatically. And there we go like that, and open all the rooms and come to work together to fill out that second page. And so please join your groups. So Anais, Cyril, Micah, and Yi Ju Young, please join room 1. Gloria, Kim Minju Ji, and Kim Pyong Koo and Cho Jin join room 2, and Ariel Chung and Juliet join room 3. And who's going to speak for the groups to tell me how you filled out that page, that work page on page 3, the second handout I just sent you. And so let me flip the coin. And if it's heads, it's the top person or the top half of the group. And it is, let me see, because I don't think you can see me if I'm flipping the coin, if I have that up. So they're like this, and it is tails. So that means it's the bottom. And so now let me flip a coin, and it'll be the bottom person on the group if it's heads, and it is tails. So it is Micah for room 1, Kim Byung-koo for room 2, and Chung, Chung, you already did that last class. Let's have Juliet Salez do for room 3. So Yi Ju Young for room 1, no, Micah Belinsky, Micah for room 1, Kim Pyong-koo, where's Kim Pyong-koo? Kim Pyong-koo, Gloria, where are you? Join room 2. And Juliet Salez for room 3. And okay, and spend a couple minutes helping Micah, Kim Pyong-koo, and Juliet Salez tell me how to fill out that second page, or tell the whole class how to fill out that second page. And let me go back to, so let me share that screen again. So use the first page I sent to fill out the second page, okay? And so we have 3 groups. So let's have group 1. I'll tell you how, we're running out of time. Group 1, work on this exercise. Group 2, work on this exercise. And group 3, work on these 2 exercises. So group 1, do A, group 2, do B, and group 3, do C and D. So group 1, fill out this. Group 2, fill out B, and group 3, fill out C and D. And you've got 2 minutes. course, we're running out of time. You know, too much to try to do. Of course, if you have questions, you can ask them. Okay, yeah. Sort of running out of time here, so 60 seconds.
That was pretty short.
Yeah. You know, it's just get us talking and thinking about these things. So, okay. And all right, so let's go back to the screen share and maybe, all right, so group one, who was in group one? Who's going to speak for room one? And that is Micah Bedinsky.
Yes.
Okay, so what would you put here in this box for Thomas Hobbes' State of Nature? How would it look? What's happening? What's not happening? For John,
So
go ahead.
Thomas Hobbes is he's very pessimistic in the sense that he thinks that humans are very well driven by self-interest, and it's a very sort of dangerous and chaotic place. And he's convinced that there needs to be some sort of higher level, or like a higher governmental level, to make sure that the people are protected and that their rights are protected, because otherwise nothing really gets done. And John Locke is a bit more optimistic in that aspect and more liberal in that aspect, because he thinks that human beings aren't that bad, and they have some sort of, it is in their sort of interest.
Okay. And what about the social contract? Micah, we lost you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my connection was gone for a second. So so John Locke is kind of, he thinks that he's convinced that people are aware of the fact that if they cooperate, they can get things done, and they can profit from that, especially like driven by trade. Yeah, there's not. I'm really sorry about my connection. It's
go on.
Okay. So I don't know how much you could understand, but so yeah, in sort of according to John Locke, you have trade happening, you have cooperation happening, and there is a need for like a governing body, but it's not it's not in the form of a monarch necessarily, as it would be according to Thomas Hobbes.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Hobbes, I think he really thought that, you know, because people are basically, you know, really nasty people, nature, that you need somebody who can claim to be head of the church, right? So Oliver Cromwell doesn't cut it. You need somebody like a king who can claim that he somehow represents the will of God in some way. Okay, room two. So who's speaking for room two? Let me remind myself. That's Kim Pyong-koo. Where would you put number one here? Kim Pyong-koo. One
Um,
goes here, here, or here. Natural rights, here, here, or here.
Natural right is in a state of nature.
Okay, and life, here, here, or here.
Life, including both.
Okay, liberty, here, here, or here.
Liberty is in social contract.
Okay, property, here, here, or here.
I would like to say in both included.
Okay, government, here, here, or here.
Social contract.
Okay, no laws, here, here, or here.
State of nature.
Okay, laws.
Social contract.
Okay, compromises are made.
I would like to say in both.
Okay, you are on your own.
State of nature.
Okay, and rights are protected.
And social contract.
Yeah, so the good things in the world come through the social contract, the institution of the social contract. We can't have culture, we can't have plans, we can't have property unless we have government. But it's got to be legitimate government, government that's not tyrannical, that's not despotic, that doesn't violate our rights to life, liberty, and the ownership of property. And room 3, and that is Juliet. What's the condition between life, liberty, and property?
Sorry, but I only can see the. I only have the document with the, you know, the resume on OBS and log, but not. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So sorry, what was the question?
Do you do you agree or disagree that there are no laws in the state of nature and people are always at war? Agree or disagree?
Yeah, agree.
Okay, government is needed to create laws, protect people, and provide services. Agree or disagree?
Depends on the theory, I guess.
And the
So-
ruler should be someone that has complete power and cannot be overthrown if the people are unhappy. Agree or disagree?
Well, with OBS, yes, but not with log.
Okay. Okay, and so the answers, let me show you the answers because we're running out of time, unfortunately. And so let me share the screen for the answers, and we go share. And the answers are here. So
Okay.
6 and 9 go in the state of nature. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are in the overlap between state of nature and social contract. And in social contract alone are 5, 7, 8, and 10. So, you know, but life, natural rights, life, liberty, and property, the good things come from compromise with laws, and you agree and then you disagree down here, and okay. So there you see are the answers, and that's it for today. And so I will, let me send you this file and go here. And that's it for today, okay? So see you on Wednesday, and I'll be in communication, okay? Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.